These messages are clearly doctored, is what I would say. They're doctored. Now, they could decide why they're doing that. Tyler's being forthcoming. We're protecting him in some capacity. I find that to be unacceptable. Okay? Unacceptable. I want every single text message. I want timestamps. It is conspicuous that you are not telling us when this was sent, because it sounds like it's when the campus is on lockdown and he's got to go back and he's got to clean up. And then all of a sudden we're in the next day when his dad is getting clued in after the picture's been released. They're not telling us that, okay? And you have a right to be a little bit uncomfortable about that, because I'm a lot of bit uncomfortable about that. We need full answers.
The FBI isn't telling the whole truth about Charlie Kirk. At least that's what Candace Owens is claiming. She's been blasting holes in the official story, saying none of it adds up, and now she's hinting at something way darker. Hidden FBI files on Kirk's alleged killer that could flip the entire case upside down. The media painted a clean, simple narrative, but Candace says it's far from the truth. Here's what we know. Charlie Kirk was in Utah when suspect Tyler Robinson was hit with capital murder charges. On paper, it looks cut and dry. One suspect, one victim, end of story. But Candace isn't buying that for a second. On her podcast, she tore into the official timeline, breaking down detail after detail that made the government's version look shaky. She pointed straight at Governor Cox's press conference, where he stumbled trying to describe the suspect. First one outfit, then another. She even dug into the FBI's own text message releases, pointing out how entire chunks of timestamps just vanished like someone cut them out. And then there's George Zinn, a random man who tried to confess to the killing, even though all the evidence proved he couldn't have done it. So Candace is asking the obvious. Why are all these bizarre loose ends being swept aside like they don't matter? She framed it in the boldest way possible. This isn't left versus right, this is good versus evil. In her words, people better wake up and recognize that this case might not just be a tragedy, but a full-on cover-up. According to her, the FBI is sitting on reports that could answer everything, but instead, those files are locked away from the public. And here's the thing. After Epstein, people don't just swallow official stories anymore. We've seen case closed headlines before, only to learn years later that the truth was buried under red tape and media spin. Candace is feeding right into that skepticism, saying if reports are hidden now, it's because they destroy the narrative the FBI wants us to believe. That's why her words are hitting so hard. Love her or hate her, she's striking a nerve. She's pointing out how Charlie's death looks way too clean, too quick, almost staged. Witnesses claim they saw strange cars pulling up at Robinson's place, vehicles nobody in the neighborhood even recognized. And then there's the name that barely gets mentioned in mainstream coverage, Lance Twigg, the trans boyfriend, brushed aside like he doesn't matter. Candace says that feels deliberate, like key details are being cut out on purpose. Now, the bombshell question she's daring people to ask is simple but dangerous.
This past Easter Sunday, they are telling me that he showed up on drugs and he was spouting out of his mouth about political stuff. And at this point, they felt that he could not be around children, that they felt that he had become increasingly more radical, increasingly more dangerous, and just sort of off the rails. They said that they're unhappy that the media is presenting him in this like manner, like he's just this kind of like soft guy, or like, a person that was just transitioning. There's like nothing problematic. There's no prodding. They don't buy the story. Okay. Lance's family is telling me that they are not buying the current story and that they feel that more people are involved.
If the FBI's secret reports came out tomorrow, would they prove this was just one guy with a gun? Or would they expose a network that runs way deeper? Right now, the entire narrative depends on where you get your news. Stick with FBI press releases and mainstream outlets, and you'll hear the same neat story. Tyler Robinson, a troubled 27-year-old, acted alone, got indicted, and now the state is pushing for the death penalty. According to them, justice is on the way. But is it really? Listening to Candace Owens this week feels like stepping into a whole different reality. She's flat out saying the official story doesn't pass the smell test. At that press conference, Governor Cox tripped over his own words, mixing up what Robinson was even wearing, leaving people wondering if cops had the right guy at all. Candace ripped apart the FBI's so-called text message leaks too, pointing out that entire timestamps were missing, like someone cut and pasted the timeline before dropping it. And she hasn't forgotten George Zinn, the random man who falsely confessed and somehow made headlines for days before the FBI quietly pulled back. To her, this chaos wasn't sloppy reporting. It looked calculated. Meanwhile, the media keeps hammering one angle. Robinson was just an angry, unstable man, maybe even influenced by online talk.
And I've got more people reaching out to us, people that were at the event, people that were at Turning Point USA. We got some questions to ask, and I'm gonna ask all of them because guess what? I don't take money from donors. So, you got a problem here. I don't want your money, I don't need your money. What I want and I need is the truth.
They point to surveillance footage and indictment papers, tying the bow nice and neat. To them, it's simple. Political violence is real, but the suspect is caught, case closed. But Candace is ripping that apart. She's saying Robinson might not have been working solo at all. She keeps pointing at the strange traffic outside his home, cars neighbors swore they'd never seen before, and she insists the FBI is hiding what they really know. Candace even went as far as hinting that hidden reports could expose connections to bigger players or outside networks. In her words, this isn't Republican versus Democrat. It's straight up good versus evil, and social media has exploded with the split. On one side, critics are calling her opportunistic, accusing her of twisting tragedy into a conspiracy showpiece. On the other, her fans see her as the only fearless voice willing to challenge the FBI head-on. Let's back it up for a second, because Candace Owens isn't just saying the FBI fumbled. She's dropping a much more dangerous question. Who actually benefits from Charlie Kirk being gone? Once you bring motive into the mix, the whole case takes on a darker glow. Candace claims Charlie was under serious pressure in the months leading up to his death, not just from political enemies on the left, but from his own circle of donors. These weren't small-time backers either. We're talking billionaire money that had once fueled his rise. According to her, those same people started pulling back, angry about the direction Charlie was drifting in. So what changed? Candace says Charlie was getting louder, bolder, more independent, even questioning positions he once defended without hesitation. One flashpoint, his stance on that blue country in the Middle East. For years, Charlie had been one of their most loyal defenders inside the conservative movement. But recently, he began giving a platform to voices more critical. And in his own interview, Charlie admitted he'd been smeared as anti-Semitic just for letting guests raise those questions. That pivot, Candace argues, didn't just ruffle feathers, it rattled wallets. Donors threatened to walk, funding dried up, and suddenly Charlie was boxed into a financial corner that made him vulnerable.
I want to be very clear here. No one, and I mean absolutely no one, outside of my husband and Erica Kirk, has the power to shut me up right now. That's it. Two people. If you gotta make an appeal, you gotta go to them, okay? That's what I just said is meant to be a dig to the donors that are making frantic calls, trying to politic this situation under control because they know I'm telling the truth.
Now picture this. Powerful donors, political operatives, international allies, all watching him shift from loyal soldier to unpredictable wild card. If Charlie kept moving down that road, it wouldn't just hurt his brand. It could have shaken an entire ecosystem that thrived off his influence. That's why Candace keeps insisting this case isn't just about Tyler Robinson with a gun. It's about the bigger network that may have wanted Charlie out of the picture. And this is where those hidden FBI files come back swinging. If the reports show Robinson had strange contacts, if they uncover shady money trails or outside influences, then suddenly this doesn't look like a lone wolf story at all. It looks like powerful interest removing a problem. History proves this playbook isn't new. People who wander too far off script often pay the ultimate price. Leaders who question alliances, activists who stop towing the line, they either get smeared, stripped of funding, or silenced completely. Candace is now painting Charlie as the latest in that legacy. So when she asks who benefits, the answer sure isn't Robinson. He gains nothing. The real winners would be the frustrated donors, the political elites who wanted Charlie under control. They gained silence, they gained stability, and maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what the hidden FBI files are protecting. And don't forget just how much money and pressure was moving behind the scenes. Charlie didn't climb to the top of conservative politics off charm alone. He was bankrolled heavy. Billionaires, mega donors, and political power players poured millions into Turning Point USA, molding him into their golden boy, young, loud, loyal. But Candace says that loyalty started cracking. Behind the curtain, Charlie was buckling under financial stress, a weakness that could have made him the perfect target. Donors were allegedly warning Charlie that if he didn't toe the line, the money would dry up, and the line he was wobbling on, that blue country in the Middle East. For years, Charlie waved their flag harder than almost anyone in the conservative scene.
They threatened to sue you. They threatened to smear you, to libel you. How dare you even ask the question?
He called them America's closest ally, defended their policies, and even fundraised alongside their biggest backers. But then something shifted. Charlie started giving airtime to critics, letting tougher questions slip through, and in an interview, he admitted the smear campaigns had already begun, being branded anti-Semitic just for opening the floor to debate. That's the kind of move that rattles powerful people, because in American politics, criticizing that country isn't just risky, it's career-ending. We've watched politicians sidelined, journalists canceled, and activists blacklisted for far less. And here was Charlie, once one of their loudest defenders, now wobbling in public. According to Candace, donors told him point blank, straighten up or lose the bag. Her framing is chilling. Charlie was being boxed in on every side. First came the money squeeze from donors who controlled his financial lifeline. Then came the smears painting him as a traitor to the very causes he once championed. And finally came fate, a bullet on a Utah campus. Now throw the FBI's hidden reports into the mix. If those files show Charlie was under financial pressure, or worse, if they reveal links between Robinson and circles bigger than himself, then the whole picture flips. It means Charlie's death wasn't just tragic. It was calculated, a silencing. And that's why Candace is turning up the volume. Because the second you whisper that blue country in the Middle East alongside donor pressure and FBI files, ears perk up fast. She knows she's playing with fire. But she's also forcing the question, was Charlie Kirk punished for breaking ranks? So where does this all leave us? Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, and the movement he built. Because if Candace is even half right, this story stopped being about one tragic night in Utah a long time ago. Now it's about legacy, power, and what happens when the wrong person starts asking the right questions. For the mainstream, Charlie will be remembered as a conservative firebrand who rallied campuses and fought the culture wars. But in Candace's retelling, he's a martyr. A man squeezed by his own donors, smeared for wobbling on untouchable issues, and finally silenced before he could fully pivot to independence. His legacy shifts from turning point rallies to something darker, a warning about the cost of speaking against interests too powerful to be challenged. And the thing about martyrs, their impact always outlives their movements. For Candace Owens, this saga has become her trial by fire. By accusing the FBI of hiding files, by dragging donors into the spotlight, and by daring to connect it all to that blue country in the Middle East, she's put herself dead center in the storm. Some accuse her of exploiting grief, while others hail her as the only one bold enough to say it out loud. Either way, she's now tied to Charlie's death as its loudest interpreter. If the official story cracks, she looks prophetic. If it holds, she'll carry the stain of conspiracy peddling. But one thing is certain, Candace has already claimed the role of keeper of the truth, making her central to how this tragedy gets remembered. And for the movement itself, the vacuum is real. Turning Point USA was Charlie's baby. Without him, it's exposed to donor shakeups, leadership battles, and image problems. And Candace knows it. That's why Candace is warning about people sliding into Charlie's chair. Because in politics, when a seat opens up, rivals don't grieve long, they scheme. And if the FBI really is hiding reports, like Candace insists, then their credibility takes yet another hit. Post-Epstein, post-Hunter, post every so-called case closed that later smelled like a cover-up, people don't buy neat packages anymore. If the files stay sealed, suspicion only grows. If they leak, even bigger questions explode. Either way, the Bureau loses. So, what's next? Expect more leaks, more speculation, and more battle lines being drawn. To some, Charlie Kirk will always be the conservative soldier cut down by random violence, but to others, he's the man who dared to step out of line and paid the ultimate price. And here's the chilling twist. Charlie once told Candace, "There are always more slaves than masters." Now, in death, his story is proving it. Because no matter how tightly the FBI tries to control the narrative, the people, the so-called slaves in that metaphor, are refusing to stop asking the question, what are they hiding? If you made it this far, make sure you subscribe to Dripzine, share this video, drop a comment, and hit that like button. Because this story is only getting louder.